Hey, good afternoon. I'm Jacinda, and Elizabeth and I will be presenting on polysynaptic cord reflexes. So we'll start with a brief introduction of what polysynaptic spinal cord reflexes are. We'll review the components of the reflex arc as discussed by Arissa and Raquel, and then we'll go into different examples of polysynaptic reflex arcs. Okay, so polysynaptic reflex arcs are more complex compared to monosynaptic reflexes. They involve more than one interneurons, and they are distributed on different segments of the CNS and involve reciprocal inhibition. So that function is that they produce excitatory postsynaptic potentials, which stimulates efferent neurons, as well as produce inhibitory postsynaptic potentials that inhibit the efferent neurons. And they act on multiple synapses compared to monosynaptic, which acts on one. Okay, so the components of the reflex arc, as discussed earlier, include a receptor where a stimulus is sent that activates afferent neurons in the dorsal root. The stimulus is then sent to the integrating center in the CNS, which, as we know, is our brain and spinal cord, where it synapses onto multiple interneurons, activating efferent neurons, and then the stimulus is sent to effectors or effector organ where it produces a response. So an example of a polysynaptic reflex would be the withdrawal reflex. So as Noah mentioned earlier, it's somatic and produces a rapid autonomic reflex. So when someone touches a hot stove, it activates the nociceptors and thermal receptors in the hand. The signal is then sent through the afferent neuron to the spinal cord, where modifications occur in the integrating center within the CNS, and afferent neurons synapse onto multiple interneurons. These interneurons diverge onto the efferent neurons, where they send signals to the bicep brachia muscle, and this causes the withdrawal of the hand from the stove. So it's polysynaptic because the interneurons act on or synapse multiple neurons. So the reciprocal inhibition that it produces is that it sends signals to the triceps and ensures that it does not contract, because if it were to contract, it would cause extension of the arm. So when the hand is being removed, this inhibitory response is to prevent injuries and to allow for a quick and smooth withdrawal of the hand from the stove. It also synapses onto neurons traveling to the brain. So this tells the brain that the hand is in pain and that it forms memories so that we remember not to touch a hot stove and remember that that response would happen again. Okay, so now we'll talk about patellar reflexes. So as Noah and Raquel and Carla mentioned earlier, patellar reflexes are monosynaptic. However, they do produce polysynaptic reflexes in that they produce inhibitory inhibition in which the inhibitory response prevents the quadriceps from being overextended. So because it was mentioned earlier, I won't go through the steps, but the interneuron stimulating the inhibitory postsynaptic potentials prevents overstretching of the muscles and contraction of the muscles. So this is reciprocal inhibition that correlates with polysynaptic reflexes. And it is a type of deep tendon reflex, which Elizabeth will now talk about.
Thank you. So for the Golgi deep tendon reflex, it's a function of the deep tendon reflex to act as a protective reflex that prevents over contraction of muscle resulting in damage of the muscle, tendon, and or bone. It's involved with a rapid switch between flexion and extension, and the Golgi tension organ stimulates by increasing muscle tension. Afferent impulses are sent to the spinal cord, and when the tension is extreme, the inhibition of can be great and overcome the excitatory efforts, and it affects the muscle's alpha motor neuron, causing the muscle to suddenly relax. And then moving on, we'll talk about the reflex. And the flexor reflex is a response to pain, and it's a response to pain, and the pain receptor is stimulate, causing increased frequency and action potential to the generated and conducted along the sensory axon neuron. The sensory impulse excites association neurons that lead to the additional spinal cord segments, and the impulse excite the motor neurons, leading to several different limb muscles. And in this picture, you'll see, like, for example, if you were stepping on glass, you immediately like lift your leg or lift your foot, the point of where the injury occurs. And then we're going to talk about the cross extensor reflex. And this is the cross is a reflex to the contralateral limb, that compensates for the loss of the support when the accipitary limb withdraws from the pain stimulus in a withdrawal response. To produce this reflex, branches of the afferent nerve fibers cross from the stimulated side of the body to the contralateral side of the spinal cord. There, they synapse with interneurons, which in turn excite and inhibit alpha motor neurons to the muscles and the contralateral side. So, in the same diagram, you'll see the weight of her body is on the opposite leg that is not injured. And then here are sources. Thank you, and questions.
Great questions. Can you go back to the reference, please?
Yeah.
Reference.
Uh,
A reference. Mm-hmm. Okay, questions? No, no questions? I'm the only one that have questions? Okay. Okay, my question is, in the presentation, when you talk about cross extensor reflex, you mentioned two words that I want you to explain. Ipsilateral,
mhm.
what means that? And the other one is intersegmental.
Okay.
What means ipsilateral?
It means like it belongs to the same side of the body that the stimulus is occurring.
Exactly. Ipsilateral means that it's going to stimulate in the same area uh, another muscles, for example. And intersegmental is not in that slide. I believe it is in the previous one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, I think it was earlier. So
There we
that
go.
it acts on different parts of the CNS.
Okay. But also could be contralateral, these actions.
Possibly, it's like between the segments.
Because say contralateral neurons, motor neurons, to extend. And it's showing the other side. Can you see that it's showing in the other side?
Mm-hmm.
In the case of the extension of the left leg, cross extensions reflex. The ipsilateral occurs in the flexor reflex.
Right.
Okay.